wanted to do that, and I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Well, you mean you couldn't kiss a guy on screen in a movie?
No.
Not even, yeah.
No, because I don't fake it. I literally, it has to.
I couldn't kiss a man either. That's true, and that does not
I
make
would
me.
cut my lips off.
Yeah, no.
I would. If I kiss some man, I would cut my lips off.
Well, I would not do that.
Child not Terrence Howard saying that he would have to cut off his lips if he ever had to play a role where he had to kiss a man. And you know where this comment is coming from apparently. He was supposed to play Marvin Gaye in his biopic, and Terrence refused because Quincy Jones told him that Marvin was on the DL. So was Marvin Gaye actually on the DL?
By dropping names, I'm just giving credibility to what I'm
Never drop names. De Niro told me that.
Yeah, so, but I'm asking Quincy, I'm hearing rumors that Marvin was gay. And I'm like, was he gay? And Quincy's like, yes.
Or was his sexuality just more complex than people were ready to admit? And if the biopic wanted to explore that, why would that be such a problem? Terrence Howard straight up refused the role. Just because of that possibility. Why, what was he so afraid of it? Makes you wonder, was it about Terrence not being secure enough in his own masculinity to handle playing a character who didn't fit the traditional mold, you know what how? About we just get right into it, okay, during his appearance on Bill Maher's Club. Random podcast, Terrence told Bill that he missed out on the chance to play both Smokey Robinson and Marvin Gaye in biopics, but for different reasons apparently. He turned down a chance to play Smokey Robinson because he was in talks with director Lee Daniels for a possible biopic of Marvin Gaye. Yes, Marvin Gaye's life story was much more interesting, and that is a story that needs to be told, and Terrence would have been perfect as Marvin Gaye. But the deal breaker came when Terrence was over at Quincy's house, and he said that he asked Quincy, "I'm hearing rumors that Marvin was gay." And I'm like, was he gay? And Quincy was like, "Yes, child." That was when Terrence realized he wouldn't even consider the role because they would have wanted to include that in the biopic, and there's no way on earth they would get him to plant a nice one on any man's lips.
I can't play that character.
Right.
100%. I can't surrender myself to a place that I don't understand.
Yeah.
And so that's the end part of that story of what I had.
Well,
to
I can
let
understand.
go.
I can understand it. I'm just not of it. I mean, I could certainly understand.
Truth be told, Marvin Gaye's story would have been epic, and if you ask a lot of people, they will tell you that Terrence passed on a golden opportunity not because of creative differences or scheduling conflicts, but because he's not fully comfortable with his own masculinity. And just for a bit of background, Marvin was one of the main singers that created the Motown sound of the 1960s, first as a session performer and later as a solo artist. Undoubtedly, he was one of the GOATs during his time, but unfortunately, he was fatally unalived by his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., on April 1st, 1984 at their home in the West Adams district of Los Angeles, California, following an argument with his father after he intervened in an altercation between his parents. The thing is, Marvin Gaye Sr. was a strict parent to his 4 children, and according to his kids, he would make them observe an extended Sabbath every Saturday. In addition, he was against the Christian tradition of attending church on Sundays. He would question the kids on biblical passages and would spank them if they answered wrong, and reportedly, Marvin suffered the worst of his punishments. He even later said that living with his father was like living with a king, an all-cruel, changeable, cruel, and all-powerful king. I mean, damn. Now, in the days just before his death, Marvin Gaye's parents had arguments over a misplaced insurance policy letter, and the day before his death, arguments had spread to Marvin Gaye's bedroom, and because he was angered by his father shouting at his mother, Marvin told Marvin Sr. to leave her alone. Then at around 12:30 p.m., Marvin Sr. shouted at his wife about the document, and Marvin, dressed in a bathrobe, shouted back downstairs, telling his father if he had something to say, he should do it in person. Apparently, when Marvin Sr. refused, Gaye warned him not to come into his room, but his father charged upstairs to shout at the mom, causing Marvin Gaye to jump out of his bed. They started fighting. Marvin Sr. left the room, came back with a firearm, and aimed right at his son's heart, and unalived him. I know y'all totally insane. Imagine portraying this on TV. And Terrence, he is an amazing actor, and would have done that role justice. But he just had to refuse it. Why? Because of the possibility that the biopic would also explore Marvin's sexuality. Well, as far as Marvin Gaye being on the DL is concerned, he never publicly came out and was even married twice to women, but you all know that he faced speculation about his sexuality. Like, remember when Quincy Jones suggested that Marvin was indeed on the DL? He said in his explosive Vulture interview in 2018 that James Baldwin, Richard Pryor, and Marvin Gaye all had intimate affairs with Marlon Brando. Wait, why was Q outing people who were dead? Weren't there similar rumors about him? You know what, never mind. Well, Marvin did try to dispel those rumors and even added the E to the end of his name, 1 to dispel rumors, and 2 to distinguish himself from his father Marvin Gaye Sr., with whom he did not get along, but for Terrence to refuse the role because of that. I mean, some people think Terrence Howard turned down the role because he's not really comfortable with his masculinity. They say it wasn't just about the script, it was about the idea of playing someone whose sexuality might not fit the tough guy image. He always wants to portray. The comment did actually receive some backlash online, with some saying that Terrence Howard is deeply problematic and that people should stop interviewing him. In fact, there were several others who said that the comments were giving he is uncomfortable with his masculinity. Also, given his history with women, some people were saying Terrence can't kiss a man, but they are also having a really hard time believing he likes women. I mean, he married Michelle Gent in January 2010, but she filed for divorce a year later, with Michelle accusing Terrence of DV and infidelity. She was actually granted a restraining order against him, which claimed he roughed her up and choked her. Speaking of that infidelity, Terrence's side piece, Mei Sing-yong, who had an affair with him while he was still married to Michelle Gent, also said that Terrence roughed her up. She also said that Terrence put a blade to his wrist after she confronted him about a half-dozen phone numbers of women she found in one of his bags, including the number of one who was supposed to be in high school. Remember, in 2001, Terrence had also been arrested in Pennsylvania for another incident that included roughing up his arranged wife and mother of his children, Lori McMuse. This is also someone who literally described women as inherently unclean, both figuratively and literally, and also said that he is a specific deal breaker with women who he apparently views as filthy. He said in his own words, if they're using dry paper, they aren't washing all of themselves, it's just unclean. So if I go into a woman's house and see the toilet paper there, I'll explain this. And if she doesn't make the adjustment to baby wipes, I'll know she's not completely clean. His misogynist views were also quite evident when he said that women who show their chest in clothes that they wear in public have no right to get angry if people make remarks about it. Apparently, he also thinks that he is truly God's gift to women, and he expects obedience without questions. Basically, some people say that his words and his actions are pretty reminiscent of someone who is struggling with their masculinity. I mean, even when he opened up about Hollywood trying to effeminate black men in an interview with Revolt, people still said that his comments were giving uncomfortable with his masculinity. He said at the time, with the new formula, most men are made to be effeminate and not have their power or sense of strength. They allow white men to be able to be strong, but when it's black men, it's seen as a threat. I don't want to remove a few chromosomes to fit into someone's story. So I feel they need to expand their stories to allow men to be men and simultaneously appreciate a woman's beauty. Well, others also said that Terrence would probably not even made past filming the biopic because of his long documented history of being difficult to work with. We are talking about a man who has been accused of having a really nasty attitude when he was working on various productions, and they just couldn't take it anymore. For instance, after booking a role on The Cosby Show, Terrence freaked out when his scenes were cut, so he angrily confronted Bill Cosby, and that ruined his relationship with the show's casting director. Years later, when he played in The Best Man, he absolutely refused to deliver a joke because he wanted to say the line in a more serious way, ignoring the direction of the director. In fact, co-creator of The Best Man, Malcolm Lee, specifically said that Terrence is one of the people who gave him the hardest time on set.
When you were doing the film, with all these actors in it, who was I should say, the diva-ist?
Terrence Howard up there. He was light-skinned.
Just the hardest, I can say the hardest to work with, but it was a challenge.
Terrence Howard, right? I know. He's so light-skinned.
Why is it got to be about him being light skinned?
He's a big.
It's the eyes, really, more than anything.
That too.
Light eyes.
Light eyes, yeah. Light-skinned, light eyes, good hair.
Actually, he doesn't have good hair. No, Terrence is definitely a challenge. He's what you call mercurial.
Okay, break that down.
Like it runs hot and cold.
Gotcha.
Like mercury.
Yeah.
In the thermos.
In addition, in October 2006, it was confirmed that Terrence had been contracted to join the cast of Iron Man. He did indeed play the character James Rudi Rhodes in the movie, but he was seemingly fired from the franchise, with reports from the Iron Man set saying that Terrence was making people angry with his infamous difficult behavior. In fact, Jon Favreau reportedly got so frustrated with the attitude and performance that he spent way more hours than he should have chopping and basically minimizing his role. But there are also those who said that they wouldn't care about what Terrence has to say because he is generally just a horrible human being. Y'all remember back in the day, he was accused of being rude while waiting to be seated at a restaurant when a man and woman who were also waiting to be served accused him of cutting the line. Now, he could have just walked away from the situation, considering his own father went to jail for escalating issues in a similar situation where he was also accused of cutting the line, but Terrence knocked the man to the ground and hit the woman in her face. Terrence was also accused of attacking a Continental Airlines flight attendant who attempted to tell him to return to his seat when the seatbelt light came on anyway. At the end of the day, what does it say when an actor backs out of a role simply because it might challenge how people see them and more? Importantly, what are we so scared of when it comes to showing that masculinity can be complicated, vulnerable, even fluid? On the other hand, do you think Terrence was right in refusing to play the role child? I can't wait to hear what you think, so drop those thoughts in the comment section below.